Every Lions fan knows the weight on Jahmyr Gibbs' shoulders isn't just about racking yards or topping fantasy leaderboards. It's about shaking the long shadow left by legends like Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson, and proving Detroit can turn fleeting playoff flashes into sustained dominance. Is Gibbs the next Detroit icon who will finally lead this team out of the NFC North wilderness? Or is the front office still hesitating, risking another heartbreak as Green Bay eyes the division crown, and Minnesota tightens its grip with Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson? The pressure's piling, stakes never higher, and every snap Jahmyr takes feels like a referendum on Detroit's future. Can Gibbs break through the last century's curse of near misses? Or will this star fade into a highlight reel that ends too soon? Lions fans, you know the tension, the dreams, the doubts, and the Detroit grit all collide right here. This is Lions News Fan Report, your straight-up, don't-miss-it Detroit Lions update. We bleed Honolulu blue forward and bring the Ford Field roar to your screen. If you live for the roar of a packed stadium, tailgate smack talk, and an offense that might just rewrite the whole NFC North script, slam that subscribe and dive in. So here's the deal. ESPN analyst Dan Graciano has just dropped a don't be surprised if prediction for Jahmyr Gibbs in 2025, and spoiler alert, it's not exactly bold, but it's telling. Graciano says not to blink if Gibbs tops the fantasy football scoring charts as the NFL's top-scoring running back next season. That might sound like low-hanging fruit, considering Gibbs was already second in fantasy points per game last year, and actually led in total points thanks to a Week 18 fury when Saquon Barkley sat out. Critics who scoffed at the Lions' 2023 draft choice for Gibbs now have to eat those words. After just 2 NFL seasons, Gibbs smashed Detroit's single-season touchdown record with 20 total scores and racked nearly 1,900 yards from scrimmage. The term league winner gets thrown around in fantasy circles, but Jahmyr owned that label last year. Let's break down why this doesn't just mean fantasy gold. Sure, David Montgomery is back healthy, which hints at a traditional two-back system Detroit favors. But here's the twist. The Lions are betting on Gibbs to shift into a higher gear. An improved Jameson Williams opening up the field theoretically means more short and intermediate throws to backs like Jahmyr. Losing Frank Ragnow in the middle of the offensive line hurts interior run blocking, which likely reduces Montgomery's between-the-tackles role and forces offensive coordinator Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell's offense to get creative with how they unleash Gibbs. If Gibbs can exploit space better this season, it's not just about yards. It's about reinventing how the Lions attack the NFC North, and that's critical because falling behind the Packers or Vikings here could mean the same old Lions story, a tantalizing season slipping away in October or November. But this also opens questions on the depth chart and Detroit's identity. Can Montgomery still hold his ground, or does his snap count shrink? How does this impact the passing game with a hopefully healthy Jared Goff? And will foundational players like Jameson Williams actually deliver that field-stretching threat? And what about the ripple effects on rival teams? If Detroit's evolving backfield turns into a nightmare matchup, you can bet Green Bay's defensive coordinator is drawing up countermeasures. Minnesota's Cook can't get complacent either, and Chicago's rebuild suddenly feels a notch more desperate. Fans, remember the heartbreak of Barry Sanders' final seasons, Calvin Johnson's abrupt retirement, and yeah, the ugly 0-16 collapse that felt like an abyss we might never claw out from. Last year's playoff surge brought hope, sure, but without Gibbs thriving, are we right back in the same cycle? Detroit's fans aren't just watching a player. They're watching the next step in a decades-long journey to reclaim respectability. And if there's one thing Lions fans have perfected, it's a cocktail of hope mixed with sarcasm. Like that guy grilling at the tailgate saying, if Jahmyr doesn't break loose this season, I'm betting the Lions will just draft Barry Sanders' hologram next year. If you're fired up about what Jahmyr Gibbs means for the Lions' comeback, big, you better hit that subscribe before kickoff. The Ford Field crowd is counting on us to bring the heat and fearless takes all season long. No fluff. Just straight talk for the real ones who know what it means for Detroit to rise again. So here's your cliffhanger. Does Gibbs becoming the NFC North's top fantasy RB signal the dawn of a new Detroit dynasty, or just another promising season that ends all too familiarly? Will Detroit's offense finally unlock the creativity and explosive playmaking this roster promises? And how will the Tom Brady-less Packers and Vikings respond to this Lions challenge? This battle isn't just for wins. It's for the soul of Detroit football. Fans, where do you stand? Is Gibbs the cornerstone, or just another chapter in the Lions' long quest to silence the heartbreak and finally roar loud and long? What if this isn't the end of the shock, but the start of something bigger? Could the Lions front office be secretly plotting a bold move that shifts the very foundation of Detroit football? Rumors swirl that they're considering a high-profile trade or an audacious extension, maybe a splashy veteran acquisition something, to send a message that the Lions aren't just building for the now, they're building to dominate. Rival teams are already circling, sniffing opportunities in the chaos, while Green Bay and Minnesota are sharpening their claws, knowing Detroit's window is cracking open. That's the kind of game-changing move that could send shockwaves around the NFC North and honestly, maybe even flip the entire NFC landscape on its head. But this strategy? It's risky. A gamble that could either catapult Detroit into the upper echelon of the league or blow the whole thing apart if it backfires. Now, consider the impact on the roster if the Lions make a bold sign or trade. It's not just about adding talent. It's about sending a message to the locker room that the hunt for supremacy is on. Will this shake the chemistry or ignite a fierce new sense of purpose? Inside the walls of Allen Park, whispers say there's real pressure from the ownership and the coaching staff to make a statement that a bold move could finally push Detroit over the hump. But I ask you, what's the cost? A fractured locker room? A stalled development? Or a shot at the playoffs that nobody saw coming? And buckle up, because if they do pull the trigger, the ripple effects will be felt everywhere: fan bases, draft, boards, and NFL power rankings. The NFC North won't stay static, they're circling too. If the Lions opt for the big splash, it could be the front office's ultimate gamble, or the very move that triggers a gut-wrenching crash. Imagine a season where every game feels like a mini Super Bowl each snap, a referendum on that decision. The stakes? Impossibly high. Detroit's history is littered with near misses, heartbreaks, and what-ifs: Barry Sanders walking away, Calvin Johnson retiring early, a 0-16 nightmare that still haunts us. But last year's playoff surge, it proved Detroit can fight, so why not go all in? Maybe that's what Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes are thinking. Maybe they're tired of playing it safe, because if they're not willing to make the bold move now, could we ever truly ignite a new era of Lions greatness? So here's the brutal truth. If they gamble, it's either the dawn of an NFL dynasty or their final shot, an all-or-nothing call that could define the franchise's future. And if the front office pulls that trigger during this critical window, we could witness the start of a Lions renaissance, or a silent fall back into obscurity. To me, it's do or die. Detroit's grit can't survive another so close, without some kind of seismic shift. We've all seen enough heartbreak, enough disappointments to know this city and this team craves a real breakthrough. Now, the question is, are they willing to bet the farm on that breakthrough, or are we destined to keep fantasizing about what could be instead of finally making it happen? And if that move is made, the NFL itself better brace, because Detroit's coming for something big. The countdown is ticking, and the pond of opportunity is drying up fast. The Lions might just be about to plant their flag or fold under the pressure. And I'm telling you, if they gamble now, we'll either be talking about a new dynasty or the end of the Lions as we know them. But make no mistake, the game is on, and Detroit's future, it's hanging in the balance. As a Lions fan, I've Seen enough heartbreak Barry's last run, Megatron's early retirement, that gut-wrenching 0-16 season to know we're desperate for real change. If Holmes and Campbell are really thinking big, now's the time to go all in. I'm sick of waiting for another close call. We deserve a team with the guts to make a bold move, because if not now, when? Honestly, I'm fired up and pissed off all at once. Let's see if we've got the guts to finally bring Detroit its first true dynasty in decades. One pride doesn't wait around. We roar loudest when the stakes are sky high. So Lions Nation, get ready. It's not just about football. It's about rewriting history. Are you in, or are you going to watch another chapter of regret? Because Detroit's future starts now, and it's time we refuse to settle for anything but the roar heard around the league.